All right, let's continue our coverage on the KZN Police Commissioner's explosive claims. Now, News 24 has published an article on the alleged close associate of Vusumuzi Matlala. This is a former senior police officer, Petunia Lenono. Right now, she is a psychologist and a consultant. But at the time, she was reportedly part of the bid evaluation committee that awarded the 360 million rand police health services tender to Matlala. Now, the article further alleges that Lenono left the police to join the company that scored that very same tender. Lenono, who is also a clinical psychologist, as I've mentioned, and a consultant. She joins me in studio tonight to clear the air around this particular tender. Good evening to you, and thank you very much for making time for us.
Good evening, Xoli, and thank you for having me.
So let's take you back to the time of the awarding of this 360 million rand tender. What role did you play at that time, and what position did you occupy within the police?
Okay. Thank you for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to set the record straight. Let me start by saying that at the time of the tender, I was the section head for psychological services, which meant that I was responsible for the mental well-being of all police officers. And to be part of any bid process, you need to be appointed. So your seniors need to appoint you to be part of the committee. So you don't choose yourself. You don't choose. That is number one. Number two is that the bid evaluation committee is the basic first level committee that the tender process goes through. So that is comprised of the end users, if I can put it like that. You know, so all the people that are going to be using the services of the tender or of the service provider constitute that committee. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember well, we're 14 or more committee members. And every committee member has a chairperson, which is somebody of a senior rank. Right. You know, so we were headed by a chairperson, and we had supply chain management experts, you know, as part of the committee, because we are just the end users. I'm just a psychologist. I only know mental health, you know. Yeah. So we have those people who guide us through the process. So in short, the purpose or the role of the bid evaluation committee is to do the screening. Yeah. We do the basic, the screening. Okay. And from there, then it goes to the next committee of, again, higher ranking, much higher ranking, senior officers within SAPS. Right. And from there are many processes that the tender process follows. Okay, so we are still at the stage of the bid evaluation committee, which you were part of. Yes. This was a panel of experts. Yes. And then you talk about it moving to the next level. Yes. Would that be the bid adjudication committee? Yes. I see. So it's the evaluation, then it goes to the bid adjudication, if I'm right, because I'm not a supply chain expert, but I believe that is the process that is followed. After the adjudication committee, it goes again to the next level. I'm not sure who handles, you know, and it would be fair to just check who signed where. Okay. Whilst on that very issue of signatures, do you remember who was the head of the police at that time? Basically, the Fani Masemula of that time. Who was it? This was last year. This was last year? Yes. So this tender went out under the current police commissioner, Fani Masemula? Yes. Okay. News 24 reports, therefore, that you resigned just 3 weeks before this tender was awarded. Take us back to your reasons for resigning. Xoli, you know, when we are done with the evaluation, because it's not our area of expertise, you even forget about it, because there are 1,000 other things that you must focus on. So as to what was happening with the process, really it was the last thing on my mind, you know. And as an individual, you know, I think everybody is born with a purpose. You need to serve a purpose while you are still here on this earth, you know. So the reason for my resignation was exactly that. I needed to expand. I needed to explore further my purpose, because we are only here for a limited time. You're not here forever. You need to make your mark while you're still here. So there were other things that I couldn't pursue while within the organization, you know, because, you know, when you are within an organization, you are representing that organization. I wanted to grow as an individual. I wanted to give other people a chance, you know, to be section heads. We need to grow as people. You cannot be stagnant. I have been the brigadier for 8 years. Yeah. For me, that is the longest I've been in one rank. So I was not used to that. I'm used to challenge. I want challenge. Hence, I chose to challenge myself. Yeah. I didn't even apply for other organizations. I said, let me start my own thing. I want to do this. I want to follow my purpose. I want to do what I'm called on this earth to do while I still have time. So that is the main reason. So it has nothing to do with the tender they awarded. I was not even aware when the tender was awarded. Yeah. I heard it after I had resigned, even from not even people within SAPS, yeah, people from other organizations.
How many companies had bid for this tender?
I cannot remember that well. Yeah, no, I cannot remember, but it was quite a few of them.
The company that ultimately wins the tender is called Medicare 2420. Mm-hmm. What was it about this company that made the panel feel warm and fuzzy, and that this is actually, these are the people to do or to get this tender?
We were the bid evaluation committee, you know, and no one influences anyone's decision. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee or the panel that I was in, because I was not even the chairperson. And I also don't want to speak on behalf of SAPS, because now I am a clinical psychologist. I'm an independent individual. I'm my own consultant. So, and for us, is not even to choose. Our role was not to appoint. Our role was not to appoint.
It was
just to do the groundwork. Yeah. To say we have done the screening. You know, there's always the first level people who do the screening. That is what we did. You know, and whoever took the decision, I don't even know who took the decision. I don't know.
What made Medicare 2420 stand out?
It was a committee evaluation. According to our evaluations, we followed the protocol that existed within the supply chain management, within SAPS. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee, as I said.
Part of the reason why I guess I'm pressing you on this is that you were the section head for psychology services.
Yes.
This was a health services tender.
Yes.
And therefore, your voice probably stood head and shoulders above other voices.
No.
It didn't.
Not even. And this is the first tender that I've sat in. This is the first tender that I was appointed to serve in. I have been the brigadier for 8 years. You know, there have been other tenders that were, other service providers that were appointed without me taking part in anything. So my role, whether I was there or not, the appointment was going to be made, you know, because it's about health, it's about assessing your physical well-being, your medical well-being, occupational health, diseases, and so forth. So my part is actually quite small. I can say, to make it easier, it's an additional member part, which is why the other tenders that were awarded, I was not even considered. I was not even part of it, because...
Talk us through the criteria. Talk us through the criteria, at least your part, which you say was a small part. What is it that you said in that bid evaluation committee And what is it that satisfied you that this service provider was the appropriate one?
When we are in the bid evaluation committee, there are also declarations that we must sign. So I think for that information, it needs to be, you need to liaise with SAPS, because now I will be going over my boundaries and what I should be saying. So for that, I think also anyone that is interested, I think will be permitted to ask for information, and that information, I'm sure it will be made available to whoever might be interested.
Did you have relations with Mr. Matlala, Vusumuzi Cat Matlala, who essentially was the owner of this company that won the tender?
Many people were aware that I left SAPS. As a consultant, you know, you cannot do business without networking. So since I left at the end of June, I have been recommended by many people for different jobs, you know, because they know that I am good at what I do, you know, and I take my work seriously. So ever since I left, many people have been recommending me to do various jobs. And to say that, did I know Mr. Matlala before then? No. No, I didn't.
So how did your relationship form after you left the police, you say?
It was, I left the police on the 30th of June, 2024. It was only towards the end of January, 2025, that I met the executive of Medicare through a recommendation. Yes, and I am an independent service provider. I do have experience. I do have the knowledge. And here is a service provider that needs assistance. So, what is wrong with that?
I guess what makes people uncomfortable is that the people that sit on these evaluation committees, as you said yourself, they've got to make declarations. So as you sit here today, you are absolutely adamant that you had no previous relations with Mr. Matlala before the tender is awarded?
None whatsoever. I didn't even know who Mr. Matlala was. You know, I met him as part of the executive of Medicare. He is the chairperson of Medicare. And if you envision of doing business with somebody, you have to meet the chairperson.
Yeah.
So yes, I met him with the other executives of Medicare, where they were telling me, you know, what is it that they needed me to assist with.
Yeah.
Yes.
At that time of the evaluation of these companies and ultimately Medicare, was there any question around how long the company had been in existence for? Because this company was founded in 2019. Did you worry yourselves about the experience of the service provider in the field?
Again, Xoli, I don't want to speak on behalf of SAPS. I'm no longer an employee of SAPS. I am an independent consultant, and I was not even the chairperson of the committee. So I think for that answer, SAPS would be in a better position to can give you clarity on that one.
Yeah. What role do you play at Medicare 24?
I don't play any role, because that was the initial stages of our negotiation to say, this is what we need. We were still negotiating. We were still negotiating, so it was still in the infancy. There is no contract in place. There is no contract. I have not done any work for Medicare. There is no contract in place, you know, and because for me it's really puzzling, because people say, I'm working for Medicare. Can they show me the contract? To say, this is where you signed, this is where Medicare signed, and this is the date which you signed, and this is how much you received. because none of that took place.
So there's no contractual agreement between yourself as an independent consultant and Medicare 24/2?
No. We were still in the discussion phase.
When what happened?
When the article was published and when there were complications, around the contract. So there's nothing signed whatsoever.
Have you ever derived any income based on your consultations, let's put it that way, with Medicare 24?
Xoli, this was at the beginning stages. I had not done any work. They just briefed me and orientated me to say, this is what we need assistance with. Yeah. So we were still trying to gather, and agree on the working relationship. So I had not done any work. So I did not submit any claims. I was not paid anything. And I'm sure, I mean, the first article that was published, it was in March already. We are in July. And at that time, I was the only person who was singled out to say I had anything to do with the 360 million tender, And I think from March until July, there should have been something. There should have been some evidence. There should have been an investigation conducted to say, what is the truth in this? Or
there's a section in the article that talks about you responding, and that response comes from an email address that belongs to Medicare 24.
Exactly.
How does that work if you are not in contractual agreement yet?
Xoli, when you are going to enter a business relationship, or if you know that you are going to start a new job, firstly, aren't you going to be enthusiastic about it? You want to impress your new employer, I was clearing the ground. I was preparing myself. To perform on my duties, because part of the contract requires that you contract other service providers, like your medical specialists and so forth. I had even started the process of seeing who can assist, who can be part of the process, so that when the contract is finally signed, I can hit the ground running. Yeah. That is me. That's how I work. I didn't want to delay the process any further. I wanted to perform, to show also that they have not made the wrong choice in appointing me as a consultant. So I was getting the ground ready, yes. And it was a matter of us agreeing on the terms and the conditions of the contract, which is why I was also given the email address for Medicare to say we were preparing everything so that we don't waste time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Unfortunately or fortunately, the contract was not finalized. It's still not finalized. So I don't have a contract. I never had a contract. I don't have any money from Medicare. I've never benefited from Medicare or Mr. Matlala in any way. In any way.
Do you intend pursuing a relationship still with his company, even as he sits in jail?
But why should I? It's not about me to pursue, I get recommended. And usually the companies, they approach me. So I seldom go and knock at the companies, so.
All right.
I'm a business person.
Can I just pause
I do
you
business.
There? Can I just pause you there for a moment? We have to take a break. Let's take a break, and when we return, we're going to wrap up this discussion. You're watching News at Prime, and if you're just joining us, we're in conversation with Petunia Lenono, who is a clinical psychologist and an independent consultant. We are discussing a 360 million rand South African Police Service tender, which was awarded, but it was after her time in the South African Police Service. And the reason she is discussing this is partly because she now appeared to have a relationship with the very company that was awarded the tender by the South African Police Service. Let's conclude our conversation, Ms. Lenono. As we speak right now, Mr. Matlala sits in prison for an unrelated matter. Is this a company that you would still want to establish a relationship with, given that the owner sits in jail?
Well, whether the owner, I have other things really that I am busy with. My focus was not on Medicare. It has never been on Medicare. I never thought of Medicare. That was not the reason of my resignation. So I'm busy with a lot of things. I'm busy, you know. I do a lot of things because there's a lot that needs to be done, especially in the mental health space. Yeah. So my focus is not there, it's not on Medicare whatsoever. And whether Mr. Matlala is where...
For the record,
yeah,
someone who says, I don't believe Petunia for one reason, and that is that you cannot gain access to a company's email account without a contract in place. That is governance 101. How would you respond to that person?
I think people have the powers to get information, any information. I think we are living in that era where if you want any kind of information, you really can get it these days. So get the information, and if anybody can show me the contract, because I'm saying I don't have a contract. I didn't sign anything. Medicare didn't sign anything. So if you are saying that I had a contract with Medicare, then please, I'd like to see it. I'd really like to see it. And if you are insinuating that I benefited anyhow, I don't know, I benefited from the 360 million, then show me how much was I paid, how much did I claim, how much did I benefit from all that. And as I said, you know, there was an urgency also to perform on the side of Medicare because they didn't want to disappoint SAPS. Hence, also, I started to do the groundwork to say, finally, when the contract is signed, then we are not wasting any time. I have my service providers ready, and we can start working so that we don't waste any time. So that is where the email also emanated from, to say if there's also anything that you might need with our admin people, because they also have an admin section that deals with the work, then it's easy for you so that the work can continue. Yeah. So we're just preparing things. But if there's anybody who thinks otherwise, if there's anybody who has evidence, please, I'd also like to see it, like really.
Is it possible that this relationship fell through as a direct result of the contract, the 360 million contract, being withdrawn by the South African Police Service? Because that's what has happened here.
You mean in terms of the work? And as I said, clearly that we were in the process of negotiation, so we couldn't really agree on the terms of the conditions and the conditions of the contract. So I'm not sure if we were finally going to agree or what the situation is going to be. So if we were going to agree and sign the contract, yes, my job was ready and I was ready to take over. Again, if we couldn't get to a point, a consensus, then it will still be fine. Yeah. There's still other things that needs to be done. You know, the world is big.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And let's talk about your job very quickly. You're an independent psychologist.
Yes.
And a consultant.
Yes.
What does that entail, very briefly?
For now, we are being generalists in mental health services, so we do executive coaching, executive wellness, climate surveys, so we help to build teams in companies, you know, and to enhance productivity. Yeah. And once we grow, because we're still building the company, I want to focus mainly on relationships, you know, how to have a healthy relationship with yourself, how to have a healthy relationship with your partner, with your children, with other people, your colleagues. And I'm doing that so that we can alleviate the scourge of GBV in the country. So eventually, that is what we are going to focus on relationship building, because everything, life begins with relationships.
Petunia Lenono, thank
Yes.
you very much for your time.